What happens when one of Britain's most charismatic actors sits down on The View expecting a conversation about his latest film, only to find himself defending his character after Joy Behar asks a question that catches everyone by surprise? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience erupts into applause as Taron Egerton walks onto the stage with a broad smile, waving before greeting each panelist. Whoopi Goldberg welcomes him with a handshake as he settles into his chair. Whoopi smiles. "It's wonderful to have you here. Every time you visit New York, you seem busier than the last." Taron laughs. "I'll take that as a compliment." The audience laughs with him. Joy Behar smiles. "You've played musicians, athletes, action heroes. Is there anything you won't try?" Taron shrugs playfully. "I've learned it's safer to say yes first and panic later." The audience bursts into laughter. Sunny Hostin joins in. "That's probably how some of your best performances happened." "More often than I'd like to admit," Taron replies. The conversation begins with stories about filming overseas, preparing for physically demanding roles, and the challenge of balancing career and personal life. The audience responds warmly, laughing whenever Taron pokes fun at himself. Alyssa Farah Griffin asks, "Do you still get nervous before starting a new project?" Taron nods honestly. "Every single time. If I stop feeling nervous, I think I'll stop caring." The audience applauds. Whoopi smiles. "That's a refreshing answer." For the next several minutes, the discussion stays lighthearted. They talk about music, traveling, and memorable moments from film sets. Then Joy glances down at her notes. Her smile softens. "I want to ask you something that's less about acting." The audience grows quieter. Taron straightens slightly. "Go ahead." Joy folds her hands. "You've built a reputation for being approachable and down to earth. But when people become famous, some fans eventually say they've changed." The audience murmurs. Joy continues. "Have you ever heard that criticism?" Taron nods. "I have. And how do you react?" He smiles politely. "My first instinct is to wonder whether there's something I can learn from it." Joy raises an eyebrow. "So you don't get defensive?" Taron chuckles. "I try not to." The audience laughs. "But," he continues, "there's also a point where you realize people sometimes create an image of who they think you are." Sunny nods thoughtfully. "That's true." Taron continues. "They meet you for 30 seconds, watch a couple of interviews, and suddenly they believe they know everything about you." Several audience members applaud. Joy leans forward. "But isn't that part of being a celebrity?" "It is," Taron replies. "I accepted that a long time ago." Joy doesn't let the subject go. "So if someone says, 'Taron isn't the same person he used to be,' what would you say?" Taron pauses for several seconds. "I'd probably ask them, 'Which version of me are you talking about?'" The audience reacts with surprised laughter. Joy smiles. "What do you mean? The version from 10 years ago? 5 years ago? Last week?" He continues calmly. "I hope I've changed. If I haven't grown at all, that would be disappointing." The audience applauds loudly. Whoopi nods. "I like that." Joy isn't finished. "But growth can also look like arrogance to people watching from the outside." The room grows quiet. Taron keeps his composure. "Sometimes." Joy continues. "So how do you know the difference?" Taron takes a slow breath. "I think the people who know you best usually tell you the truth." Sunny smiles. "Family? Family. Close friends. The people who don't care about your resume." The audience applauds again. Joy glances toward the audience before asking the question that instantly changes the mood. "Have you ever read something about yourself and thought, 'That's not me at all'?" The studio becomes silent. Taron's smile fades. He nods slowly. "Yes." Joy follows up immediately. "Does it bother you?" Taron thinks carefully before answering. "It used to." "What changed?" Whoopi asks. "I realized I was spending too much energy trying to correct strangers who had already made up their minds." The audience murmurs in agreement. Joy looks directly at him. "So you just let people believe things that aren't true?" Taron answers calmly. "No." He pauses. "But I've learned there's a difference between explaining yourself and defending yourself to people who aren't actually interested in listening." The audience applauds. Joy studies him for a moment. "So today, are you explaining yourself?" Taron smiles politely. "I think today we're having a conversation." The audience applauds louder. Whoopi glances around the table before looking back at Taron. "You know, I have a feeling this discussion is only just getting started." The audience applauds again as the panel prepares to dig even deeper into the topic, sensing that the next questions may be the toughest of the interview. The audience is still applauding as Whoopi smiles and lets the room settle. That's an interesting distinction, she says. Explaining yourself versus defending yourself. Taron nods. I think they're two very different things. Joy Behar leans forward. Help me understand that. Taron answers calmly. If someone genuinely wants to understand where you're coming from, that's a conversation. But if they've already decided who you are before you answer, then you're not really having a conversation anymore. A few audience members applaud. Sunny Hostin nods. That happens more often than people realize. Joy isn't convinced. But public figures also have to accept criticism. I agree, Taron replies immediately. I've made mistakes in my life, and I've learned from them. Nobody should expect to be beyond criticism. The audience applauds. Joy smiles slightly. So where do you draw the line? Taron thinks for a moment. I draw the line between criticism and assumptions. What do you mean? Alyssa Farah Griffin asks. Taron folds his hands. If someone criticizes something I've actually done, that's fair. But when people start telling me what I was thinking or what my intentions were, that's different. The audience murmurs. Sunny says, intentions are hard to judge. They are, Taron agrees. And that's why I try not to assume the worst about other people. Whoopi smiles. That's a philosophy we could all use. The audience laughs and applauds. Joy glances toward her notes. You've said in interviews that confidence took time to build. It did. So let me ask you this. She pauses. Do people ever mistake confidence for ego? The audience becomes quiet. Taron smiles politely. Sometimes. Joy follows up quickly. Does that frustrate you? It used to. What changed? Taron answers without hesitation. I realized I can't control other people's first impressions. The audience listens closely. I can only control how I treat people once they've actually met me. Several audience members clap. Sunny smiles. I like that answer. Joy nods. But first impressions matter. They absolutely do, Taron says. Which is why I try to be respectful even when someone disagrees with me. Whoopi asks, has there ever been an interview where you walked away wishing you'd answered differently? Taron laughs quietly. More than one. The audience laughs with him. What happened? Whoopi asks. I thought of the perfect answer, about 3 hours later. Everyone laughs. Joy points at him. Now that's relatable. The audience applauds. The mood lightens for a moment before Joy asks another question. Have you ever felt misunderstood by the media? Taron pauses longer this time. I think everyone who's been interviewed long enough eventually feels misunderstood. Joy raises an eyebrow. So it's the media's fault? Taron quickly shakes his head. No. The audience watches carefully. I think sometimes interviews move quickly. Sometimes answers get shortened. Sometimes people hear what they expect to hear. Sunny nods thoughtfully. That's fair. Joy crosses her arms. But celebrities also benefit from media attention. They do, Taron agrees. And I'm grateful for it. So isn't that part of the deal? Taron smiles. It is. He pauses before continuing. But being grateful doesn't mean you stop hoping for fair conversations. The audience applauds. Whoopi notices the reaction. I think people appreciate that you're not blaming anyone. Taron smiles. I'm trying not to. Joy suddenly asks a more direct question. Have you ever wanted to publicly defend yourself after reading something that wasn't accurate? The audience becomes silent again. Taron looks toward Joy. Yes. And why didn't you? He takes a slow breath. Because sometimes responding gives the story a longer life. The audience murmurs in agreement. Sunny says, that's probably true. Taron continues. I've learned that not every accusation deserves an argument. Joy studies him. So what does deserve a response? Taron smiles. The truth, when it can actually help someone understand. The audience applauds again. Whoopi looks at him thoughtfully. You've stayed remarkably calm through some difficult questions. Taron laughs. I'm Scottish by adoption through enough film sets. The audience laughs. I've learned tea solves at least half of life's problems. Even Joy laughs. I don't know about that. Taron grins. It's worth trying. The laughter settles. Whoopi looks toward the audience before asking one more question. If someone watching today only remembers one thing you've said, what would you want it to be? Taron becomes serious. I'd want them to remember that defending yourself doesn't always mean raising your voice. The audience grows quiet. He continues. Sometimes the strongest response is simply telling the truth as calmly as you can. The studio breaks into applause. Whoopi nods slowly. I think that's a powerful place to pause. As the applause continues, the panel exchanges thoughtful glances, sensing that the conversation has reached a deeper level and that the next part of the interview may explore even more personal territory after the commercial break. As the show returns from the commercial break, the audience welcomes everyone back with warm applause. The atmosphere is noticeably more serious than it was at the beginning of the interview, but it remains respectful. Whoopi Goldberg smiles at Taron Egerton. Welcome back. We've been having a conversation that's clearly connected with a lot of people in this audience. Several audience members applaud. Whoopi continues. You've talked about staying calm when people misunderstand you. That sounds simple, but I imagine it's much harder in real life. Taron nods. It definitely is. So how do you actually do it? She asks. He smiles thoughtfully. I remind myself that reacting emotionally doesn't always improve understanding. Sunny Hostin nods. That's easier said than done. It is, Taron agrees. There have been moments when I've wanted to respond immediately, but I've learned that taking a little time usually leads to a better answer. The audience applauds. Joy Behar smiles. So you don't believe in responding in the heat of the moment? Taron laughs softly. Only if it's about what to order for dinner. The audience bursts into laughter. Joy laughs too. Fair enough. Once the laughter settles, Alyssa Farah Griffin asks, has success changed the way you trust people? The room grows quiet. Taron takes a moment before answering. I think success teaches you to pay more attention to actions than words. Sunny asks, did that lesson come naturally? No, Taron replies. It came from experience. The audience listens closely. There are people who celebrate your success because they're genuinely happy for you. And there are people who celebrate it because they think it benefits them. A few audience members nod. Whoopi watches him carefully. Was that difficult to accept? It was. He pauses. But I also met incredible people through this career, so I try not to become cynical. The audience applauds. Joy leans forward again. Can I challenge you on something? Taron smiles politely. Of course. You've spoken a lot about staying calm and giving people the benefit of the doubt. But doesn't there come a point where you have to stand up for yourself? The audience becomes noticeably quieter. Taron nods. There absolutely does. Joy follows up. So when is that moment? He answers calmly. When silence starts being mistaken for agreement. The audience applauds. Joy raises an eyebrow. So you do believe in defending yourself? I do. Then why wait? Taron smiles. Because defending yourself should be about telling the truth, not winning the argument. The audience responds with another round of applause. Sunny smiles. I think that's an important distinction. Whoopi nods in agreement. I do too. Joy folds her hands. Let me ask you something directly. Taron nods. I'm listening. If you woke up tomorrow and found yourself trending online because people had misunderstood something you said today, what would you do? The audience falls completely silent. Taron smiles for a moment before answering. First, I'd probably make a cup of coffee. The audience laughs. Joy smiles. And after that, I'd watch the full conversation. The audience grows quiet again. I'd ask myself whether I communicated clearly. He continues. If I genuinely made a mistake, I'd say so. Sunny nods approvingly. And if you didn't? Taron answers without hesitation. Then I'd trust that the complete conversation speaks louder than a short clip. The audience applauds loudly. Whoopi smiles. That's a very measured answer. Taron shrugs modestly. It's the only honest one I have. Alyssa asks another question. Do you think audiences are becoming better at looking for context? Taron thinks for a second. I hope so. What gives you that hope? She asks. I think people are becoming more curious. They don't always accept the first headline they see. The audience applauds again. Joy smiles. I'd like to believe that's true. Taron nods. So would I. Whoopi looks toward the audience before asking what she says will be her final question. After everything we've talked about today, what do you think makes someone strong? The studio becomes completely still. Taron answers slowly. I don't think strength is about having the loudest voice. The audience listens intently. I think real strength is being able to hear criticism without letting it define who you are. He pauses. And it's also having the courage to admit when someone else has a point. Several audience members begin applauding. The applause quickly spreads throughout the studio. Joy smiles warmly. I may have challenged you quite a bit today. The audience laughs. But you've answered every question with respect. Taron smiles back. I appreciate good questions. Whoopi laughs. I think Joy has plenty of those. Everyone laughs together. As the applause continues, Whoopi turns toward the camera. When conversations stay respectful, people don't have to leave agreeing with each other to leave understanding each other. The audience rises to its feet, applauding as Taron thanks each panelist with a handshake. The cameras slowly pull back while the discussion winds down, leaving viewers with the sense that the interview has become one of the day's most thoughtful conversations. As the closing music begins to play, the audience remains on its feet, applauding as Taron Egerton thanks each member of the panel before taking his seat one final time. Whoopi Goldberg smiles warmly. Taron, thank you for spending time with us today. We appreciate guests who are willing to have real conversations. Taron nods. Thank you for inviting me. I knew there would be challenging questions, and I'm glad we had the chance to talk them through. The audience applauds. Joy Behar smiles across the table. I'll admit, I pushed you a little today. The audience laughs. Taron grins. A little. Everyone laughs together. Joy continues. I ask tough questions because viewers expect us to. It isn't personal. Taron nods respectfully. And I never took it personally. I think difficult questions can lead to meaningful conversations if everyone stays respectful. Sunny Hostin smiles. I think that's exactly what happened today. Alyssa Farah Griffin agrees. We didn't agree on every point, but we listened to one another. The audience applauds again. Whoopi looks toward the camera. That's what we've always hoped this table could be. A place where people can disagree without disrespecting each other. The audience applauds once more. As the cameras stop recording, the panelists continue chatting with Taron. The atmosphere backstage is relaxed. Several members of the production crew thank him for taking the time to answer every question thoughtfully, even when the discussion became uncomfortable. Before leaving, Taron shakes hands with each panelist again. Joy smiles and says, You're welcome back anytime. Taron laughs. As long as you promise to go easy on me next time. Joy grins. No promises. The audience, still able to hear the exchange, laughs one final time. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, short clips from the interview begin spreading across social media. One clip features Taron saying, Defending yourself should be about telling the truth, not winning the argument. Another highlights his comment about judging people by their actions instead of assumptions. Viewers quickly begin sharing their opinions. Some praise Taron for remaining calm throughout the interview. Others compliment Joy for asking direct questions without raising her voice. Many viewers comment that the discussion felt respectful despite the disagreement. Entertainment commentators describe the interview as a refreshing example of a guest and panel challenging one another without turning the conversation into a shouting match. Fan pages share their favorite moments, while discussion threads debate which answer from Taron stood out the most. By the following morning, clips from the interview are still being discussed online. Some viewers believe Taron handled every question perfectly. Others think Joy asked the questions many people were already wondering about. Regardless of where viewers stand, most agree that the conversation remained civil from beginning to end. Back at the studio, producers quietly reflect on the episode, pleased that a discussion built on honest questions and respectful answers generated so much positive conversation. As the story comes to an end, one message remains clear. Meaningful discussions don't require everyone to agree. They require everyone to be willing to listen. If you enjoyed this talk show story, share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more talk show stories. We'd love to hear which moment was your favorite and what you think Taron's best response was.